So from my perspective, I mean, there's obviously what's going on and then what people think it's going on.
Why do you think there are so many college students right now that feel the need to be shouting, "Free Palestine"?
Why is it that Palestine can't have any Jewish settlers? Israel has a 22% Arab minority. Could you imagine if we tried to kick those people out?
I'm here with Jan. He's someone that is pro-Israel, and we were going to do a discussion with somebody from that's a pro-Palestinian. However, they fell through, and now I'm with Jan. And Jan, we as Americans, and people like me, I think there's tons of people that really don't understand the exact conflict that is happening right now in Israel with Palestine, and we just see the protests that are going on here. No one really knows what people are protesting for and what is actually going on. So what is going on from your perspective?
So from my perspective, I mean, there's obviously what's going on and then what people think it's going on. What's going on is you have two groups of people who are in a conflict over one piece of land. What makes this conflict unique is that there's almost no other place on earth where you get two extraordinarily ethnically, culturally, and developmentally different people that are literally on a border with one another. Like, for instance, take any conflict you want, India and Pakistan. Those are people that are fairly ethnically close to each other, obviously divergent for many generations. One is Muslim, one is Hindu, or majority so, and that's their conflict. But could you imagine if Sweden, you know, sort of liberal, progressive, ultra-white, ultra sort of small Sweden shared a border with Afghanistan, literally Afghanistan? It would be unthinkable. Could you imagine that kind of conflict? Those are two incredibly different people fighting over one territory of land. There's nowhere else I can think of that's even close to that. So that's why this conflict just continues to boil, because it's Jews and Arabs sharing a territory and arguably fighting over the same territory. Well, not arguably, they are fighting over the same territory. So,
and why should we as Americans care about what's going on there if it's so far away and there's protests and college students are taking over colleges in the name of Palestine, and we're all the way over here?
So there's two different issues, right? I mean, you can also ask why are they doing that, and we'll talk about that in a second. Why we care is because Israel is sort of the only foothold of the West in this kind of place. And if you look even around Europe, I think I've talked about this before, Europe is welcoming more and more migrants that are causing tremendous problems. They have no pride in their own culture, and they are becoming very progressive, both economically and socially and militarily, to where they are no longer going to be Western allies in a generation at most. So Israel is the only remaining Western power. They give a tremendous amount of intel to America. Like I also mentioned before, Israel has to fight a constantly defensive war because they're, in essence, they're told by the West. You know, your mother asked me before, well, why does America exert such influence? Well, they believe they have a right to because they send money, but in turn, they want this constant sort of standoff of never actually finishing the conflict by, in essence, either occupying that territory permanently and preventing any kind of Islamist government, or from relocating those people and saying this territory is ours, period. You know, the other problem, and I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent, is they keep saying we want a Palestinian state. What they never say is what that state is going to be and where. They've made it very clear. They want all of it. At a bare minimum, they want Jerusalem, which is obviously the only holy city in the Jewish tradition and the Jewish faith. They want that, and they don't even want half. They want all of it. So this talk of a Palestinian state, well, where? Where? It's like me saying I want a Jan state right here in the middle of New York. Give me a Jan state. Okay, but where? Like, what will be its borders? Will I have to share those borders? That's not a country. There's no country in the world that's shared amongst multiple people that I can think of. As of, you know, according to the Balfour Decree and according to the division of 1948, which the Arabs rejected, Jerusalem was going to be a city shared by multiple polities. I'm not sure that happens anywhere else, and we're continuing to expect to live in that reality. So I don't know if I've really answered your question, but we should care because it's the last bastion of the West, because there are a lot of joint or dual citizens with Israel and America, and because Israel is a hotbed of technological and medicinal advancement that, you know, is really one of our only, if not only, ideological ally at this point.
So would you say Israel is kind of like the America of the Middle East, where they kind of uphold to our same standards, and that's why we can, or we should be able to trust them? Is that kind of what you're saying? Like, they're the only country over in that side of the country, in that side of the world, that we can actually trust?
I mean, that's an interesting way of putting it. Obviously, Israel and America are different in that America is, you know, expressly unethnical. It has no one ethnicity. Obviously, it used to be more white majority, now it's more mixed, but there's no one ethnicity or one group that's dominant or whose state it is. Israel's obviously a state that's predominantly Jewish. It's supposed to be the Jewish state. Now, unlike every other state in that region, they have a large minority group. And people don't know this. I think a lot of people don't know this. The Arabs have parties in Israel. They vote. They form a substantial bloc. They're 22% of the population. They have multiple seats in the Knesset, which is their parliament, many of which expressly either want to dissolve Israel or want to curtail Israel's power or want to create a Palestinian state that competes with Israel. People don't know that. Could you imagine a Jewish party in Iran? I'm not even sure the Iranian people have a party in Iran. And you want a minority group to have it? It's unthinkable. But I don't know if I call it America. It's certainly America's ally, and it shares the same kind of pluralistic, Western, democratic, capitalistic, individualistic values that America upholds, or at least used to.
And I would like to say I'm probably not the best person to be talking about this subject because I just don't know too much, but that's why I want to speak to people like you about it because it's such an interesting topic.
But I pretend that's important. You know?
No, you know your stuff really good, and it sounds like from some of the research that I have done, Palestine, the Palestinian people once did rule the land that Israel now holds, and now is that why they're trying to? Is that why they're like fighting? Like that's our land, and I'll give it back because at one point Israel did take it over.
So that's incorrect, but that kind of highlights the amorphousness of the Palestinian identity. When convenient, they call themselves a unique people that have a unique tradition. Despite having no history they can point to, no famous leaders before 1948, no culture, no individual language, even their flag is just yet another Arab flag with that green, black, red, and white tricolor, or the triangle with the tricolor. When convenient, they are Arabs, they're Arab brothers, the Arabs are their brothers. That is incorrect. There's never been a Palestinian state. Before 1917, the Turks had dominated that part of the world. They were also Muslim, but the Arabs did not have their own state. They lived under Turkish control, and I think in Egypt, the British controlled it at one point. Then the British freed it from the Ottomans because the Ottoman Turks were allies of Germany in World War I. At this point, the Arab states were formed, basically different lines. The original, what they call Palestinian Protectorate, included everything we think of now as Israel plus the territories, and Jordan. Jordan was created and cut off from that piece, representing more than half of all the land, was given to the Hashemite kingdom, an Arab power, which is really the Palestinian state. That is the state. They never held it at any point. They were always under British control there, but they had more political power than Jews. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who was the head of the Muslim polity and spoke, for those people, was an ally of Hitler. In fact, he met with Hitler at one point and sternly recommended to Hitler that he kill the Jews rather than welcome them into the protectorate, the Palestinian protectorate. And I'm not going to say that's where Hitler got the idea, but it certainly didn't help. Certainly didn't help. Because before that point, the Nazis were merely trying to deport the Jews. They weren't actually stuffing them in camps yet. So, no, there has never been an Arab power that held that land, because in 1947 and 48, the British offered the division. And they said, we'll leave completely. Part of it will be Jewish, part of it will be Arab, and you will share Jerusalem. The Arabs said no. They evicted the Jews from every single Arab country and then invaded, or around the same time, invaded Israel, hoping to destroy it. They lost that war. They then, at that point, Israel did not yet start the expansion they're now accused of. It was after they won the 1967 war, where at that point, they started cutting off more pieces. They took the Golan Heights, they took the Sinai, which they returned to Egypt. There's no other power I can think of where you're continually invaded by your neighbors, you win, and you're expected to allow them to redo it over and over again, and if anything, you're rewarding them. This talk now of a Palestinian state, you are literally rewarding the Palestinian Arabs, or Palestinian Arabs, for October 7th. You're giving them a state on Jewish land because that will somehow make peace? How will giving them autonomy of the territory they're fighting for create peace when they haven't been peaceful up until that point? Oh, will it be peaceful the same way that Syria has been peaceful, or Iraq, or Afghanistan, or Egypt, or every other Muslim or Arab country that has constant intra-Muslim warfare? Yes, but this magical place will be peaceful. Will the unicorns enforce the peace, or will it be the magical fairy dragons that do it?
And now you just mentioned October 7th, and that is a day that will go down in history with this conflict that is happening. What exactly happened on October 7th at that music festival?
So as I understand it, there were a lot of, at the music festival, there are different parts. Remember, they invaded both the music festival and also kibbutz, which are like quasi-communist Jewish settlements on the borders. They saw weakness. I am fairly confident.
This was by Hamas.
So this is, well, remember, Hamas is the government of the Gazan Palestinian people. There were a lot of civilians there. And again, you have to remember, Hamas and Gaza, these are where the soldiers end and the civilians begin is not distinct like it is here.
So Hamas is the government of the Palestinian people.
Yes, Hamas is a uber-religious ISIS-like gang that runs Gaza. They get all the money. They are celebrities there, in essence. They run the government. But again, they are beloved by the people. The people hide them. We've heard the stories. They emerge from tunnels and hospitals. People give them food. Like, they're both feared and loved. It's like gangsters running, 1920s New York.
Yeah.
They are both beloved and feared.
But are they in power, like in the power seats of like, we are the leaders of this country? Like, would they be like at the White House saying this is our land, or are they more like a cartel where they have their operations in separate places, but they are in control secretly of the country? Where
It's very open, but they are a terrorist organization. See, that's the great thing. An actual terrorist organization is also the government. So could they come to the White House? Well, no, they'd probably be arrested. Though at this point, I don't even know. But no, they can't come anywhere because they are a terrorist organization. They just also happen to be in charge. Think of the Taliban right now in Afghanistan, or when ISIS ran parts of Syria and Iraq, right? Were they the government? Well, it depends who respected them as such, but arguably they're more elected than those people were. They were elected by the Palestinian people. As far as October 7th, many of the people who were there were straight up not even Hamasniks. They were just Palestinians who just loved the torture and the rape and the kidnapping. They were way into it. So they were there with them, and this is their people, this is their government. Now at the music festival, those are just like kids who are completely unprotected. In other places, they attacked, soldier encampments, they attacked civilians with many kids. You've heard a lot of children were murdered and kidnapped. Those children weren't obviously at the music festival.
Yeah.
Even in Israel, I don't think that the 5-year-olds are going to a rave. That was more 18 to 20-year-olds that were at that rave.
And then the people were taken hostage, and you hear a lot of like free the hostages. Do you think the hostages are still even alive at this point?
Very few of them are alive, and the ones that are so horrendously tormented. They are being used, it's interesting. I think it was Golda Meir said that there will be peace when the Arabs love their children more than they hate us. And that's what's really tragic about this whole experience is you hear these stories of Arabs celebrating their son being a martyr. What's his name? Ismail Haniyeh, the actual head of Hamas, who's a billionaire who lives, I believe, in Qatar. I think he recently moved to Turkey. When he was told 2 of his sons were killed, there was no expression. They meant nothing to him. They were more political chips. Their deaths are probably more valuable to him than their lives. We as Jews, we value every life. We don't produce 9 of them per family and then set them loose as warriors. We don't do that. We pay our dues, and so as a result, we care tremendously about each and every life that is Israeli or that is Jewish, and they in turn do not. It's very hard to fight an enemy if you either care or are demanded and forced to care more about their safety than they care about their own. They are happy to throw their children, to throw their women, to throw their civilians, to the extent, civilians, that they throw in the way of Israeli fire, because that gives them points. That gives them points with the foolish international community. Their deaths mean nothing to them. I can't help but feel if at this point Israel either cares or has to care more about the life of the average Arab in Gaza than his neighbor does.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective, and it's hard to believe that that's even true, that that's what's happening with those people and how they value the lives. I hope that's not true in some ways.
Unfortunately, you have to remember, one of the unfortunate forms of racism, we always hear of racism as I hate this group, I hate that group. There's another form of racism. It's called the racism of lowered expectations, or what they call white savior complex, where you presume that your worldview has to be everyone else's worldview. It's the same example of wandering into the tiger cage to take a photo with it because you imagine that the tiger is just as friendly as you are. And obviously, when it then, rips you into pieces, you are shocked by this outcome. Don't assume that your worldview, how you value your life, or the life of your friends, or the life of your brother, or the life of your children, are the same way every other person views the world. Mm-hmm. Because to do so, A, is arguably racist, but more importantly, is quite foolish. Because then you presume that they fight by the rules with which you engage. But if they don't, then you have a problem on your hands.
Yeah. Now I want to skip forward to what is happening currently here inside the United States. We first met you when all the protests were going on here at NYU, Columbia, and all across the United States. And I went into the encampment in Columbia. I was kicked out very quickly, and I was surprised by the people that were there. I was trying to ask them, why are you guys protesting? What's going on?
They don't know
They don't know why. They didn't know why. They said, please speak to our organization.
Right.
And why do you think there are so many college students right now that feel the need to be shouting, free Palestine, from the river to the sea? Why do you think that's coming out of them right now?
These people have been protesting something for a long time, whether it was George Floyd, whether it was global warming, whether it was trans rights. It doesn't particularly matter. They need a purpose. A lot of these kids, like I said before in that video, you know, they don't have anything better to do. Most of them are sort of the social rejects. They are in this fragile part of their life where they don't know what to do with themselves. Many of them are studying things that are really not valuable on either the government's money or on their parents. And this is just like, this is a cause. You know, we live in a society that's largely abolished religion in most of its forms, but that doesn't change human perception, it doesn't change the human mind. People still need something to believe in. And so they've created this sort of godless secular religion where I call it the Church of Tolerance. They need to worship a constant victim complex. You know, they've called it social Marxism. And it is, right? Because Marx believed in class oppression, that there are only the oppressors and oppressed. They've taken that framework and applied it to ethnicity and to religion, where they only see the oppressed and the oppressors. They believe that Islam and, you know, Arab, Palestinian Muslims are oppressed. They don't know the history, they don't know about Muhammad, they don't know about the invasions of Muhammad, they don't know that Islam has spread almost everywhere that it is by war. They don't know about any of its history. What they see is they see what appears to be brown people with what appears to be a non-Christian religion being unhappy, and they perceive a whiter, richer, and more Christian-like, which is in this case Jews, oppressing them. That's all they really see. They don't delve deeper. They might have been marching for, their parents might have been marching for Jewish rights 15, 20, 30, 50 years ago. Now they're marching for the oppressors of the Jews because they have the memory of a goldfish, certainly historically.
And they talk about like, oh, divest, we need to stop funding what's going on, stop the genocide. And like, is America actually funding any part of this genocide? Or they say we're funding this genocide?
There is no, first of all, the idea of genocide, a genocide is when you take a group of people and you forcibly attempt to exterminate it. That's what the Turks did to the Armenians, that's what the Germans did to the Jews. They sought them out to kill them. I think the population of Gaza has multiplied tenfold in something like 30 years or 50 years. World's worst genocide. I think if you take the Arab proliferated numbers, which have been proven to be incorrect, they claim it's like 36,000. I think Gaza is 2.3 million people. That means that in an urban war, Israel has killed less than, 2% of the population in an urban war where more than half of the people they killed were enemy combatants. So to call this a genocide would be if I were to throw a rock at that bird and claim that I'm attempting to exterminate every single dove in New York City. It is ridiculous. It is not remotely close to a genocide. You want to talk about a genocide? A genocide was when the Arabs kicked every single Jew out of every single Arab country from 1948 to 1952. That was an attempt at a genocide. Thankfully, they're not very competent, so it didn't work. But to call this a genocide is such a... They're very good at branding. They use nice words, from the river to the sea, Palestine. They're good at chanting these things that sound nice. The same way as Black Lives Matter. Did that really mean anything? Did that statement mean anything? Everyone agrees Black Lives Matter. But you frame it that way and it's hard to argue against it. Palestine will be free. Free from what? Free from Hamas? Free from Jews? It sure sounds like they want that, because I don't know if you've seen it. Every time there's a settlement, they say, how could there be Jews settling in the future land of Palestine? So they're admitting then that Palestine, the future Palestine, must be Jew-free.
So they're, in essence, like also saying, like, hey, let's get rid of the Jews, in a way that they're saying,
why is
you guys
that?
are getting rid of us.
Right. Why is it that Palestine can't have any Jewish settlers? Israel has a 22% Arab minority. Could you imagine if we tried to kick those people out? So Israel must be open and pluralistic, but Muslim countries must be closed off and only their own. For the same reason, it is the world's worst offense, apparently, for Jews to move to a Muslim part of the world, being Israel, but Muslims moving to the West, be it Europe or America, is perfectly fine, apparently. It's only colonization if it's in the direction they don't like.
And then, with the protesters that I talked to, I was very surprised after, because I didn't know anything going into it when I went to the protest, but I did learn at the protest that many of these people were part of like the LGBTQ community. And then after, I was reading stuff on like Twitter and on the internet, and it turns out like Hamas is very anti-LGBTQ. And
about that,
like, why do you think these kids that are part of that community are supporting a cause that's so far away from us, and they wouldn't even be supported in that country where they're supporting right here in America?
Supported? They would be supported over the railing of a roof, where they would then be dropped to their death. These people, they believe in intersectionalism. So they believe in this Marxist or neo-Marxist concept where every oppressed group must support every other oppressed group. Oppressed, I use it in the largest quotation marks. So they believe that basically anyone who's not a white man must be allied with each other, right?
Yeah, I didn't even call the term Zionist, which I learned is a person that wants to, if I understand it correctly, it's a person that wants to invade on Palestine.
No, that's insane. Zionist just means you believe in the land of the Jewish people and Jewish autonomy. That's it. They've taken that word, which has been around for a while.
Because they've even called me Zionist. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on.
They don't know what's going on either. You're talking about a 250-pound guy who says he's a woman, who is like severely unhealthy, claiming that you are a Zionist. He doesn't know what Zionism is. He doesn't know anything. You understand what would happen to me if I went to any Muslim country? You see these really hilarious interactions where you'll see like I think it happened today. There was a gay pride protest somewhere in Europe, and like actual Arab Hamasniks blocked it off and almost got into a fight with them. Like, it's hilarious. These are people, they always say this, the Jacobins always kill themselves. You know what the Jacobins are?
No.
The Jacobins were, in the French Revolution, it was obviously a, I'm not going to use the word right and left, because even though it was invented at that point, it means nothing relative to us today. But as the revolutionaries got more and more left-wing, they became more and more horrendously violent. Until the Jacobins, who were the party that came to power under Robespierre, just started beheading like thousands of people who they believed were anti-revolutionaries. And so they were killing people who were in their own larger party like a year earlier. The left always consumes itself. You're never liberal enough. You're never progressive enough. So there's always going to be these kinds of hilarious infightings are always going to occur because you have inherently unstable alliances between what, homosexuals, like liberal white women, and Islamist Arabs who want to turn American Sharia law. What kind of union is this? It's a clown car.
Mm-hmm. And we were originally going to have a little debate between you, I was going to be the moderator, and a pro-Palestinian, and they fell through today. And so today we got your perspective. Did you find it shocking that they
No, not at all. Well, I think we've seen with this conflict, they're not really big on head-to-head combat. It's more like, arriving in large numbers, wearing a baklava or a mask, screaming something, and then running away when the police come. I'm not surprised that he was not willing to debate someone who's even moderately educated on the issue, because there's a very good chance. I've talked to Arabs about this issue, and a lot of it they'll say the same thing. These are your facts. That's what you say happened. I'm like, no, that actually, this did happen. He's like, no, you think that happened. Or what they will do is they'll say, we don't care about what happened in 1948. We don't care about what happened in 700 under Muhammad. We don't care about what happened this. We only care about this 1 year where something we think that was bad for us happened. And that's it. I'm like, how about that year? How about what happened there? How about what happened here? Doesn't matter. Just this one thing. Like, you can't debate in good faith with people like that because they don't believe in facts, and they don't want to analyze every issue. They just want to keep curtailing the narrative. And, as they say, cut out a man's tongue and you tell the world you fear what he has to say. And that's... that's what they want to do. They don't want to have a full debate. They just want to keep talking about how many children are being killed, even though no one knows how many children are being killed, because it's Hamas's health ministry that runs the numbers in the first place.
Okay. And
the sheep are being counted by the wolves. Great.
And quick response for this video, because this will be the last question.
Sure.
Is Israel giving these people signs to get out of these areas? That's one thing we've heard as well. Like, they were going to bomb Gaza, but they told the people of Palestine, get out. However, from what I understand, the people did not leave even after Israel warned them that they were going to get bombed.
That happens a lot. So I go to any bathroom right now in any restaurant and knock on the door and make the person in there leave. Good luck. Now, Israel was able to move 1.9 million people, I believe, out of Rafah. Or was it 0.9? Some enormous number. They moved them in several days. Even Biden was impressed.
So why does Israel tell them that, like, hey, we're going to bomb you guys, like, everyone get out? Like, are they, like, showing that, like, they're not trying to do a genocide, they're trying to get rid of Hamas? They're trying to do the opposite, get rid of Hamas. The problem is those people either don't move because they want to be martyrs, or Hamas is so deeply embedded with them that Hamas just moves. How do you even figure out who Hamas is when literally every child, every male child, 15 and up, could easily be a recruit of Hamas? Like this. Many of them probably are. So that's the problem. Israel's fighting an urban conflict against guerrilla warriors. They don't wear a uniform. It's very hard to even see who Hamas really is. The fact that Israel has killed so few of these people in such a densely populated area where they are so loyal to this gang that runs their country, I actually can't understand how so few people have died or how so many Hamasniks have died. It's amazing. And with our open border policy here in the United States, do you believe that Hamas has entered into the United States as well?
Well, you have to remember, Hamas is Islamism.
It's a separate topic,
right.
But...
No, I agree, but no. So Hamas is just the flavor of Islamism that hates Israel, right? You have ISIS, you have Muslim Brotherhood, you have Al-Qaeda. take your pick of any Islamist organization. Of course they're coming in. It's a great opportunity, and you will have a terror act at some point. It's a matter of if, not when. It could be something as small as the Boston bombing, or it could be something as big as 9/11. We really don't know. We are playing with fire. Our border is completely open. We don't know what's going on. Our agencies have no idea what's going on. They're being told to stand down. Asylum cases are being dismissed. Other than maybe hoping that these people will vote, for the Democrat Party, I don't understand why this is happening. Maybe some misplaced amount of, I guess, white guilt or whatever. The same thing as we're seeing with these idiot white kids marching for Hamas. I can't understand the group psychosis that is presently occurring when it comes to these issues.
If there's somebody like me or somebody watching this video and we want to learn more and understand truth of the subject that's going on with no bias or very little bias, what could we learn? What could we use to enlighten ourselves?
Well, it used to be that you could go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia has become very liberal about things like this. They're very, very pro-censorship.
Is there a book or anything like that, or a podcast?
I would be maybe the wrong person to ask. Certainly, there are a few people who do this. I recommend using Google and being very, very careful on the sources you read. Try to read some Israeli sources if you can. As you've seen, even with the evacuations, Israel doesn't... Okay, I'm sorry. Let me say one other thing. In Israel, there's a very active left that is anti-Zionist and anti its own nationalist. They always say 2 Jews, 3 opinions. There is an active Jewish left wing that feels bad or even hates itself. Feels about the Arabs, hates itself. You're not going to find very much of that on the other side. You can go to any number of, I guess, Israeli sources, go to historical sources, go to maps. Just be careful reading any editorialization from any magazine that you get online today. Go to things that are older. Go to maybe historical books. That's the one thing I wish I was more prepared for, is to answer that question. In truth, I don't know. I've learned this of a mosaic of talking to people and reading things and just looking at the history and just knowing a little bit of the history of that area, particularly Islam, and realizing that this is a culture that is very imperialist and very invasive. So when you realize that they began in what is today Saudi Arabia, and now they are from as far as Morocco all the way to Afghanistan and India, you realize that obviously this is a religion that spreads, and it spreads aggressively. So you start taking some of their claims of being colonized a little less seriously, a little more with a grain of salt. And, I will say, people don't know this. Islam at one point invaded not only all of Spain, but halfway through France. If they hadn't been stopped by Charles Martel, Charles the Hammer, who was Charlemagne's grandfather, if they hadn't been stopped by him at the Battle of Tours, we might all be speaking Arabic right now. So people don't know that. They don't know. Spain was fully reconquered from Islam in what, 1500s? It took that long. So when people say, Islam was a victim of imperialism, no. Islam was a victim of its own failed imperialism. So try to read the sources and try to know the history before you have these strong opinions. That's the problem with America. We all have a strong opinion. We're all on Twitter. We all think we're entitled to it. But, everyone has an opinion. But a good opinion is worth 1 million uneducated ones.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe. We'll be reading and responding to your comments down below. Thank you so much, John.
And next time you guys retweet, whoever is retweeting, if you do, please credit Nick, because he tries really hard to do this. And this sweatshirt is hot and it's warm out.
Thank you so much. Yep, we're out here working hard just for you guys. And that's the video. Thank you so much, John.